Today's webinar, Meeting SMEs Where They Are, Building an Inclusive Ecosystem for Africa's Small and Medium-Sized Business. I'm Adrian, I'm your moderator and host for today. So today we're going to have a great presentation by vcita. And just to set the stage, living in Africa for the last 5 years, I've realized there are two unique characteristics in Africa. We have a very, very young demographic, very, very young population. Some would see it as a challenge, some would see it as opportunity as well. At the same time, we have millions and millions of small and medium-sized businesses. That is the demographic of the economies throughout Africa. And that can be a massive challenge for anyone trying to enter the African market as well. And I think the challenge for most of anyone trying to penetrate the African market is really to bridge that digital gap between usage, training, and skills for the entire population, whether you are an employee or whether you are an SME as well. So today's presentation by Adi from vcita, she'll talk you through what her and her organization can offer. And just before she starts, some housekeeping questions. If you have any questions for our speaker today, just please type in your question in the Q&A and we'll take the questions right after she's finished. Adi, over to you.
Thank you so much, Adrian. And I couldn't agree more with the unique demographic and the unique challenges that you recognize. And I think I'm one of those people who thinks this is particularly exciting. I think in terms of, the population, the mobile first environment, almost like a lack of fear of and technology anchors that are keeping the continent, backwards, like you would get sometimes in my home country, Germany, for example. I think that's very exciting. And we are indeed today here to present a project and I would say a hypothesis of how you can potentially build a proposition and take it to market in such an environment, and how we challenge ourselves as a company to create such an environment. So it is not a very long presentation. There will also be some examples and a video as well to share with you today. Again, if you have any questions, please pop them in the Q&A, and I know Adrian is looking out for them. So a little bit about who we are and what we do, so why we even embarked on this experiment. So we, as a company, we've developed an app that helps micro businesses manage their money, time, and clients. And in that respect, we're looking at, okay, if I am any kind of service provider, if I am a professional, that could be anything from a legal consultant to a physician to a yoga studio, a fitness instructor, we have a lot of educational professionals, so tutors, coaches on the platform. How can they make sure at the end of the month that they've covered all of their bases? They've made sure that they manage their time most efficiently, that they made sure that they have a good record of their clients, so they're able to give them the best client experience possible. And then possibly what's most important is at the end of the month, they need to feel, rest easy that they have been paid for their time and their skills and their immense effort. And we do all of that administrative work to extend their capabilities and to allow them to focus on what matters most, which is, in service providers' case, it's their client experience. They are in competition with other service providers. They're in competition with bigger businesses who might be offering really nice state-of-the-art digital experiences. And consumers nowadays, they're used to it. They're used to be paying online. They used to be looking stuff up, getting referrals, getting recommendations, having a self-service experience for a lot of things. So we're trying to take that level of technology and bring it to the individual a business owner, which is where we found our niche. And as to put it on a very, very high level, what we are doing is we're helping them make their business digital, digitalize their day-to-day operation. We're taking them to the cloud, as maybe 10 years ago would be the common phrase for it. But we had to then face some realities about what does it mean to ask small business owners to digitalize their business. And this is what we've learned. So first of all, we have to look at this as a learning challenge. Sometimes our customers come in with a very strong sense of what is missing in their lives. I want to be able to, take digital payments in a recurring fashion, and I want to be able to offer my VIP clients discounts for new yoga classes that I'm offering. That would be someone who had something very specific in mind, and they're able to go ahead and look for that, use the services of any search engine to find potential solutions for that, and then come up with whatever app or a solution that's relevant for them. But the majority of businesses, and also the majority of people, of course, small business owners are not in any way different from all of us. They don't necessarily have this clarity of what it is that I'm looking for, or how do I solve my pain points. So we're looking at a lot of people who come to us at the point where their main feeling is, I would like to be more organized, or at the end of the month, I would like to know that I've, as I said, covered my bases. I've spoken to all of my clients. I've charged everyone that needed to be charged. And it comes across often as overwhelming and frustrating, and possibly also self-critical. I am not organized. I am not on top of things, which is, of course, not necessarily the case. It's a very complex environment. And to think that any individual could have the memory to never let anything slip. If I have a full schedule and I have, my life, my family, my home, and of course the worries of, managing my business and working in my business at the same time, we cannot expect people to do this on their own without the help of digital tools, in the same way that none of us remembers our friends' phone numbers anymore, and none of us navigates to anywhere without a GPS anymore. So this is the same type of challenges that technology can easily solve for them, but it is a learning challenge. They need to understand the value, and they need to understand what it is that they're doing. So if we look specifically, and this is I will say it's a dictionary definition, but it is very much a behavioral definition of learning. And if any of you is in the audience is a learning expert, you will know that there are other definitions as well. But if we look at the behavioral definition of learning, we're looking at creating together with them a relatively permanent change in behavior that results of an experience. And, something that traditionally we will always say, kid touches the hot oven for the first time, they learn that it hurts, and therefore they will not do this again. So this is a behavior change as a result of an experience. So how do we translate this into our day-to-day? How do we create change in behavior? And is it for us to actually expect people to change their behaviors based on our say-so or our recommendation? This is possibly where we start, and it's very common for application or tech vendors to say, I am educating a market. But what does it mean that we are educating a market? We're technically asking a bunch of people to make a change to their behavior based on them trusting us to do so. So if we're looking at what needed to change, what we found out very, very quickly was that we couldn't change our clients' behavior, our clients' point of view, without first taking a critical view of ourselves. And what do we need to be a better supporter for them? I will say, of course, we're talking about small business owners, micro business owners, while as a company of 190 employees, on some definitions, we are also considered a small business. We are not the same business owners as they are. We don't face the same challenges as they do. So we needed to first take ourselves, and again, as the title said, we needed to meet them where they are. And to meet them where they are, we needed to understand that as business owners, especially if they are sole owners or they have up to 10 employees, which is our segment that we're looking at, entrepreneurship is not a state of doing. It's not a list of tasks that I have to get through. For example, if I am employed by a company, if I am, let's say, an accountant for a bigger company, I will have a list of tasks that I will have to get through in the day. As product managers, we will be able to kind of chart that list of tasks. And when come 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock, sometimes 10 o'clock, because of course, employee personnel are also working very, very hard. But at some point, I will finish for the day and I will go home and, for the rest of my day, for my hobbies, for my family, etc. When it comes to entrepreneurs or small business owners, we had to shift our thinking and understand that entrepreneurship is a state of being. Especially if you're a business owner, you do not go home to your family and leave the business behind you or leave your individual tasks behind you. You take them with you to your evening. It keeps you up at night. The pressure of it, or the stress, or trying to make up time in the evening. We were, we were talking to some of our customers who told us every evening I'm spending, an hour texting all of my clients that are supposed to come for appointments tomorrow, just to make sure that they all remember to show up and that they don't miss their appointments, and that they bring all the stuff that they need to bring with them. And, I find that I spend a lot of time on this particular task, and it takes away from my evening time, but also it takes away from my well-being. And this is ironic because this is an extremely easy task to automate, like having a list of appointments that happens tomorrow and sending out reminders. Possibly as bigger companies, as enterprise users, we all know that this is an extremely easy thing to automate. And this is, what we came back with from our, deep dive research into what it feels like to be a small business owner. We realized we have to do 3 major things. We have to, first of all, simplify the experience. We are building an app for businesses, but in terms of their behavior, in terms of their buying decision, in terms of their the time that they have allotted to try and understand our app and how it serves them, we have to be extremely respectful of their time, and we have to build experiences as if they were consumer experiences, extremely simplified to understand, and that is our responsibility. That is on us to make sure that we create a very usable environment, and that we don't ask them to invest that time that they don't have to understand us. The other side of it, we try to automate as much of the day-to-day tasks that they have. And the more we can automate things, the more time we save for them. And that is eventually, for a service provider, their absolutely most precious resource. And then finally, we had to be far more into the learning and the educational side of things. So we can't simply expect them to pick up our app because they realize that they need it. We needed to be out there. We needed to create content for them. We needed to put that content where they are and not wait for them to meet us. So that was the first side of how to create learning, which was, first of all, we needed to learn ourselves. And then the other side of it was, okay, now that we are looking at what change are we trying to drive, what change in behavior, how do we then create experiences that are relevant for them, that will create that same effect of touching the hot oven, but we are trying to do this remotely. We are trying to do that at scale. So how can we then create that experience that they can learn from, sitting, as it was in lockdown when we first launched this particular project, we were all sitting in our individual homes, in our individual, environments, and, still trying to affect someone else's experiences in life. So thankfully, we do have quite a few digital platforms around us that are very good at creating experiences that people really identify with and that really resonate with them. And that is where we had to look at, what are people most engaged with? What are they most, engaged with emotionally? And the answer was quite obvious. It's social media. Social media, the format of it, the medium of it, the way that stories are being told, the way that they're being shared, is something that drives immense engagement and immense emotional response from consumers, from people. Obviously, small business owners are consumers of social media as well. So we needed to take whatever techie digitalization story that we wanted to tell and reinterpret it to speak to people from, their perspective, to create those experiences for them that they would recognize, and to be honest, that are competing for their attention and time anyway. So we needed to compete with the social media experience on the same level. So I did promise an example. This is the video now, an example of how we've particularly tried to approach creating identification and inspiration in the process of grabbing their attention and getting them to engage with us. Hopefully the video plays.
Bianca is a business professor. I teach business operations, a business strategist. She's a global project manager. She's an entrepreneur for the past 7 years. She's a podcaster. She's a live streamer. She is a YouTuber. But I'm also, which I take great pride in, I'm also the mother of 2 small, beautiful children. I have a boy and a girl. One is 2 and one is 7. So yeah, Bianca does a good job at all of those things. I loved my job of being a business and project manager at the firm that I was at, but me and my husband had a baby, and so now my responsibility was different. I wanted to be a mother to my child, and just being in that industry, it just wasn't conducive with the schedule. And so me and my husband had a conversation. I had told him that, hey, I could probably do bookkeeping part-time. He fully said, hey, I could support our livelihood, but you're going to have to support Bianca's habits. And I was completely okay with that being my business. And so I quit my job on a Friday. That Monday, we found out that my husband had to have emergency brain surgery, and he was off work 9 months, no pay. So this little fun business that was supposed to pay for my clothes and shoes and all of the fun stuff that Bianca liked, it had to pay for our livelihood. And so I had my husband's support in the beginning, and I still do, but I've been supporting us with my dream for the past 7 years. My husband having brain surgery really forced me to boss up. And so he was only off work for 9 months, but when he went back to work, I still had that fire that I had when I worked my 9 to 5. I was closing deals, getting new clients, meeting new people, and my business just kind of took off. And so I definitely felt like that spark that happened 7 years ago was the catalyst that I needed to figure out that I can actually do this and I can do it well. And I figured it out, and it's been working. I remember being 7 years old, and that summer I ended up going to a university with my cousin. He was a business professor, and so that summer he was teaching summer school, and I just remember him teaching his students, and they were engaged, and they were asking questions, and they were laughing, and I was just like, that's just something that I wanted to do. I've always wanted to be a business professor, and so this year I was able to really fulfill my dream and become a business professor because I have the staff now, I have the systems, I have the automation, I have that flexibility, and so 20 years later, that's what I'm doing now, and so I was able to fulfill my dream of that this year. I really want my dream car, and my dream car is a Mercedes G-Wagon. I'll take the white one with peanut butter interior, but I'll also take the black one with cranberry interior. I want to spend my next birthday in Bali for 2 weeks, and I want to take my entire immediate family and pay for all of that. I want an 8-bedroom house. My ultimate goal, which is to retire my husband. He's been supporting me and has had my back, front, side, with every crazy idea I have. He's right there with it. I just want him to do whatever his heart desires and be able to support that financially, mentally, physically, and just all aspects of it. So next year, I am going to retire my husband.
So hopefully you were able to catch that and see what an emotional journey we were on there. And I have to tell you, I was in the room directing Bianca to record her story, and I thought that was so emotional as she was doing that. And now I'm watching it for possibly the 100th time, and still I find that extremely touching as an idea. And you know, we have to assume that yes, a good amount of people will respond, and you know, to our concepts, to the human element of it. But then at the same time, where are we when it comes to their response to the technical message that was back there, where Bianca was saying, I was able to fulfill all of those things through having the systems in place, through having the tools in place. And of course, we move on to later say, you know, share with the customer the different tools that she put in place and how she's using them. But, you know, we have to take into account that when seeing this, a good amount of people will be right. Okay, I'm cool with whatever you've shared with me right now. I'm ready to go. I'm inspired by what I've seen, and I have to, you know, I'm willing to take this to the next level. I'm keen to take this to the next level. And this is of course, the response that we're hoping for. This is, of course, the response that we want to be planning for. But we have to take into account that when it comes to changing habits and asking people to change a fundamental part of their day-to-day activities, even if we do make that promise that if they do so, they will get a better work-life balance, they will get a better mental health, they will get better at serving their clients and focusing on their businesses and realizing their dreams, which is basically the subtext of what we're telling them through those videos. We have to take into account that this is still a big ask that we're making of them. So although I'm Cool is what we're aiming for, we have to take into account that some people will be, I'm quite anxious about this. I have been working in a certain way my entire life. I am not sure how my clients will take this. I'm not sure that I will be able to operate this. I'm not sure that I'm not, taking on too big of a responsibility. And one very interesting thing that we often hear specifically about the digitalization of business operations is that people feel that it will put a distance between them and their clients. Like, I normally sit at night and I write all of these text messages to remind people to come myself. If I wasn't doing this, maybe my clients didn't feel that they have the personal touch that I'm giving them right now, or maybe I will feel distance from them. And I do care so much about their experience, and I do care so much about them, which is often something that we hear a lot. So we have to understand that some people will not just accept our word for it as is and just drop everything. Another option is, yes, I am absolutely on board all of those things. It's only that I have this to do today, that to do tomorrow. I have, the business, the kids, the money, the everything that's going on right now in my life, and I don't know where to start. I am completely overwhelmed by my day-to-day, and maybe I'm not entirely convinced that I need to put everything that I do on hold specifically to take on this challenge that, while I would like to do it, I understand that it's important for me, maybe I'll start next year. And I think this is a classic kind of New Year's resolutions scenario where I do understand that I need to stop smoking. I do understand that I need to go on a diet. I do understand that I want to exercise more. And I do understand that I want to be more organized in my business. But, and this is a but that we have to be extremely respectful of, because it's a real thing. It's not out of laziness. We all do it ourselves in our day-to-day. So that but, where do we then take it to? And then finally, there will be a good percentage of the population that will simply say, it's not for me. It's just not for me. And we, again, absolutely have to respect this. We have clients where we have been begging them to start using something that we know will help them. And you feel this frustration with our customer success team. They're like, you could do this so much better. And they're simply not interested. And that is absolutely their choice and absolutely fine. And I'm sure, again, we can all think of situations in our own lives where we were in a similar scenario where we knew something was good for us, but then we didn't want to do it. So for us, it's about understanding that wherever you are, out of those 4 options, whether you're absolutely ready to go or you're giving us a big pushback, we need to cater for your emotional state at that time and start you from there. So if it's by giving, smaller chunking baby steps of this, so you don't have to take the full thing, but rather smaller steps. If we just change one thing that will become, a good value for you, save some time for you, reduce your level of anxiety and allow you to move to the next thing, then this is, how we have to now go ahead and kind of rethink and kind of slice and dice our offering to make sure that it's available to whoever we would like to use it. And then just as an example again of things that we have been doing since, we have been doing a lot of workshops that are specifically intended for people who don't have necessarily a single idea about how they would like to digitize their business, but rather we take it to, I would like to be more organized, better structured. I would like to feel that I'm proud of my business, which is our hope for them. And so the workshop is about helping them understand what are the different options that are available to them, and then allowing them online to take a self-assessment. And the self-assessment is completely about where they are at right now. It's not about this is good or bad, or it's more about this is what I want to do, this is what I may want to not do ever, and this is something that I might want to do, but I need more help around. Then we provide them with the actual tools, the digital tools that we have on our platform. And lastly, we need to make sure that we stay connected to them over time as a community. Again, social media is here to our service, creating, whether it's Facebook groups or TikTok channels. I am not a big social media champion myself. I absolutely have no idea how TikTok works, but we have great people around that absolutely know. We have some of them with me on the line today. So we make sure that we don't think as a brand that they need to come find us where we decided is our platform of choice, but rather that we need to find them where they are. And if you finally wanted to see more examples of this particular project and how it was launched, this project specifically, and you'll see more videos like this, and you'll see more tips and tools that we've created, is called businessunusual.io. We've launched it during COVID together with our partners at MasterCard, who were greatly supporting our outreach to our customers. So they've kindly put their name on it as well. And we are, this is just an example of what we could do. Of course, there are many other ways of approaching the same problem. And I would very, very much love to hear, Adrian, yourself, or if anyone from the audience had additional ideas, additional thoughts, or would like to get involved in this, then, we would be absolutely delighted to have a conversation around that. And that was the presentation.
All right, thank you very much, Adi. Very good presentation. So for the audience out there, if you have any questions, please drop the question in the Q&A box and we'll take it up immediately. So a few good, interesting points throughout your whole presentation. I think the one that caught my attention most is simplicity, especially not only in Africa, but anywhere else these days. Everyone wants tools that are simple to use and not complicated. The idea of social media, that's how you bring out your thoughts and your messages to the wider audience. And more importantly, what you mentioned about bringing the technology to the people and not asking them or expecting them to come to you. So, here in Africa, there is definitely a digital literacy issue among the wider population. We discussed this before. Despite the fact in Africa, we were one of the early adopters of things like fintech, mobile money, e-wallets and all that. But I think there is a large proportion of the population that has been excluded from any other form of digital literacy. I think that's very important. Digital inclusion is a prerequisite for growth. It's a prerequisite to sustainability, a prerequisite to progress basically in society in general. And I think that's one of the biggest gaps we have here in Africa, both from a consumer and from a SME or enterprise standpoint. There's definitely a digital inclusion, digital literacy gap. So I think one of the big questions I would like to hear, I think and some of the audience would like to hear as well, is if from your point of view, what's the role of technology companies like yourself in terms of helping bring inclusion, digital inclusion to the wider population in Africa? And secondly, what kind of ecosystem you think is needed as well? You talk about your partnership with MasterCard. So, I mean, who else should be involved? Obviously, government, financial services companies. I mean, what are your thoughts around these points?
Yeah. Well, yeah, obviously there is so much to unpack, and I do feel, Adrian, you and I could talk about this for hours, and as two people, we can probably come up with 20 opinions. But I think, first of all, to address the question of digital inclusion, we have to do the research and understand what actually does resonate with people and what platforms are they using right now, what platforms they're happy to use. And, my personal, in my very specific age, I had the chance of seeing the internet being rolled out in the Western world, from something that you had one computer of at a lab somewhere at your school to something that was available to each of us at home. Yes, I am that old. And I remember the, complete aversion that my grandparents had to anything to do with the computer until, first of all, my sister went on a trip, a tramping trip to South America, and they discovered the wonder of Skype, that they could actually see her from the other side of the world, which was like a miracle to them. And then when my grandfather, who was very big on, making sure, we're German, but very big on paperwork, making sure all of the forms, all of the files are in place, when he found out that he could, upload some of his forms to the relevant government agencies, the tax authorities online, which he was again extremely impressed by. And I think it's a question of, if we looked at the product experiences that social media creates, that messaging apps, so things that are that allow us to connect to our to our family, to our friends, to our peer group. And if we look specifically at payment solutions, I am sure we will find that people are much happier adopting that type of technology. And you will see my own 88-year-old grandfather clicking away if he feels that third value to him. So maybe we should ask ourselves, if the same people are able to use a feature phone or a smartphone, but something that has multiple applications on, and where they wanted to connect to their family and friends, they are able to understand the technology. What is it about our technology that they are not able to understand? Is it possible that we did not demonstrate enough value for them to say, I am willing to take the chance, I'm willing to take the extra mile to actually go ahead and do this? And of course, I can speak from a product design perspective. There are far bigger, better people than me that are actually taking care of the infrastructure side of things. And we know, there's a lot of, many projects keep being announced of getting, more connectivity, more infrastructure, more internet, more devices into the hands of different African nations. I think the question is, once we have everything connected, what is the content? What are they? What will they take on and do on top of these platforms? And I would say that what they will feel drives value for them. So again, the responsibility is on us to look at, those platforms that were able to prove value and try to mimic what they're doing and how they're doing it. And I think social media, again, an amazing example, because the adoption of social media in the same communities that might, think of themselves as digitally excluded is often very, very high. The ecosystem perspective that you asked about, I do believe it's a long time since no technology company is an island. We don't have our code stashed away in our well-cooled server room somewhere. Nobody does that anymore. The cloud, APIs, interconnectivity allow us to do really, really good things in terms of working together and creating experiences that are greater than ourselves. And if we are to be at all, again, respectful of our customers' time, we need to help them get as much done with as little, switching between apps and as little kind of competition between apps, but rather, do things together and allow them for a smooth experience. And, I am an ecosystem thinker, an ecosystem player by heart. Of course, some other companies might think that a more of kind of a exclusive ecosystem works best in terms of their technology. But at vcita, we chose to be very much a team player. We play well with other kids. I think I actually had that as a presentation at some point.
Well, I think that's where the industry is going as well, in an ecosystem, because everyone augments each other's technology. It gets better. And when it gets better, it's just better accepted, more widely adopted, and so on. I mean, that's where I feel anyway, that's where the industry is going. And next question is, obviously we can't escape this COVID-19. I mean, globally, Africa to a certain extent has bore the same brunt of COVID-19 like the rest of the world. I think we are lagging behind in Africa is vaccination, obviously. That's another big debate, access to vaccines or vaccine equality and so on. But if you look at it from a global perspective, COVID-19 has accelerated digital adoption in many ways. You hear it all the time. What took years, now the expectation is weeks. The way we have changed completely, from the way we work in the past, working remotely was like a luxury, or a luxury now is quite common not to be in the office. And a lot of things we have never done in the past, like the way we consume or buy products. In the past, for me, for example, I'll do e-commerce once in a while, but now it's quite common because I'm just too lazy to go to a shop, or that habit has picked up over time. Over during the last 18 months, and also the way we consume media as well. More and more so is online rather than going out physically. So how have you seen COVID-19 from where you are standing and looking into Africa? Has that process, has that experience changed the way the people in Africa consume products, and have they also accelerated the digitization process as well? Thoughts on that?
I think some things were absolutely an overall success in terms of, for example, the usage of digital payments. Obviously, Africa has already been leading the way in the adoption of digital payments, so possibly the increase was not as significant as it is in other countries where there was absolutely no use of digital payments. You have to remember always that in the US, still, I think 40 or 50% of transactions are made by paper checks in the mail. So Africa is a really good position there because of, being, an early adopter of these technologies. So maybe some of that, digital, I will argue, bubble, it was not felt necessarily as keenly. I do think e-commerce definitely picked up, and I think definitely a lot more, creativity around how do I deliver services remotely. And we've seen some of the enterprises as well supporting small businesses by delivering digital tools to them, which was very kind of COVID driven. We were seeing a lot of understanding within the channels, within the enterprises that are looking to deliver those solutions, that this is it is something that they need to do urgently, which is not necessarily what the feeling was when this was a 5-year master plan with a pipeline and a roadmap. And so that definitely expedited things for the end customer as well, that change in mentality of those channels, of the ecosystem. But again, I will say that I did mention the word bubble earlier. I think one of the things that we want to take a very critical look at ourselves as vendors is 6 months in, 12 months in, do we believe that all of the customers that did sign up to our digital solutions are still using them and are getting value from them? And you do see specifically around e-commerce, you see insane numbers of people signing up to open a digital shop. But if all of those insane numbers of digital shops were actually present in the market, were actually having the skill set to do the relevant SEO and brand building and getting people to the shop, and then also delivering the goods, because nobody created a magic virtual way of bringing the goods eventually to your door. So do we actually believe that 500 million or even 700 million people created e-shops during the pandemic and are actually using them? Or did they just sign up to the hype or to the idea of using them? So I will say, we have to make sure that whatever change in thinking, in mentality that happened during COVID, that we actually make it a sustained change in lifestyle, in the approach, in the day-to-day of the business. And if not, again, is it because of an infrastructure question? Is it because of our product not being, accessible enough? Is it because this use case only existed during pandemic, and now that people are out there, they're not interested in, doing things remotely anymore? All of them big questions coming, I can't say out of the pandemic, but definitely during the pandemic. And, the vaccine in Africa situation, again, I could talk about this for many, many hours. But eventually, if we want to support small business recovery, supporting the vaccine drives has to come first. There's nothing we can do for the small business if people are not out there consuming services, shopping, and they are safe to do so. So I'm absolutely with you. And we hope to be doing a little bit for that ourselves as a company.
Oh, I fully agree when it comes to access to vaccines. I mean, unless the whole world is vaccinated, we'll never move out of this pandemic in a good way. Back to some of the points you made earlier, I'll be going back out. So here in Africa, I do feel, at least in the last 3 to 4 months, people are going back to the office, maybe not in the same way as we did pre-COVID, but definitely if you go to a big office building, there's kind of like a vibe back there. People are definitely going out to restaurants again. It's packed on weekends, so I don't think people are staying at home anymore. People are definitely going back to the shopping malls as well. So, I mean, at least in Cape Town and Johannesburg, at least, I can't speak for the rest of Africa, I think we are, 70% back to normal. I mean, based on traffic especially. I mean, if you were talking about 6 to 9 months ago, it was empty roads. Today, there's a bit of traffic, so you have to take that to consideration going anywhere, like to the airport or to meet someone, basically. So I don't think we're going to a world whereby everyone's sat at home to work permanently, shop e-commerce permanently, and Uber Eats all day. So I think we are, at least 70% back in Africa. The other point that I was going to make, and probably the last question before we close, I mean, everything we discussed today, whether it's an ecosystem story, bringing technology to the people, training, evangelizing as well, and trying to stir up adoption and acceptance of technology, I think it's quite hard. It's a cultural shift in many ways. I think people are just comfortable doing the same thing that's always been doing, as long as they can feed themselves, pen and paper, cash cash way of transaction, and so on. But I mean, if Africa is going to make the next big leap forward and to eradicate the digital divide, eradicate some of the depressing poverty we see in some parts of Africa, we need to have tech inclusion. We need a flourishing SME segment, definitely, because that's the backbone of the economy around the region. Without that, things would be a lot worse. I mean, if someone could ask you today, what are the 3 prerequisites, the 3 must-have to see a flourishing small and medium-sized sector in Africa, what would it be in your own words?
I want to, because you mentioned Cape Town, and I did spend some of the pandemic in Cape Town myself.
Oh, nice.
And I was thinking as you were talking about an interesting story where when I was leaving Cape Town, I needed to take a COVID test to take the flight. And I was searching for, I was there for over 3 months at that point. I was searching for a clinic that would give the test for flights, which wasn't necessarily very easy at the time because that was kind of a lucrative type of test. I searched for them online. I found a website that wasn't mobile ready. I had to search on a really clanky map where the closest clinic would be, and it was in Hot Bay, which was not that close actually. And then I submitted a request form for which I never got any kind of confirmation that I've sent it. That night at 10 o'clock at night, someone got back to me by email. So obviously they were working at 10 o'clock at night, which is unfortunate. And she gave me a relevant time by, text, email, and send me a link to then go on their, digital payment solution. But then I needed to take a screenshot of actually making the payment based on the invoice that was also digital but was attached to the email, and I had to copy paste the number. So I was sitting there, I was thinking, this is amazing because I am experiencing a fully digital experience. I got this by, I looked for it online, I got an email, I paid digitally. The only thing that wasn't digital is actually arriving there to take the test. And yet it was so clanky. And, although they've adopted all of these levels of technology, this person was still out there at 10 o'clock at night scheduling these appointments. So I think, again, if we're looking at it from an ecosystem perspective, this is not a good enough solution to have a payment solution, a website, an email to communicate with your client. If they didn't send me a reminder, but if someone wanted to send me a reminder, would they need to then text it themselves? So digitalization is absolutely the big keyword that we're using, but digitalization has many layers to it. So am I, do I get the smoothest solution? Did I research enough as a business to understand what are the options that are available to me, where my existing service providers, whether they are a bank or a telco or an insurance company or my government, it actually made me aware of the different options that I have in place. So I don't know if that was 3 things or 10,000 things, but possibly that is what that will be my final advice. My final thinking is think of this as a product manager would think of a customer experience and ask yourself, is this good enough? And what is our responsibility of making it better?
So simplify this, basically make it easy for the end user and make it integrated as well. I think that was your Cape Town experience that could be learned by everyone else. So fascinating conversation. I'd like Adi to end this thing. So if you have any further questions, please send it onto the Q&A inbox, and Adi or myself, depending who the question is being posted, will get back to you. So Adi, thank you very much for your time. Do you have any final few words? Just let us, it's all yours now to close it.
Well, first of all, thank you. And I think, it's always good to have a not to only listen to my own voice this entire time. And I think you had some very valuable insights for the audience as well. And yes, we are absolutely available to have a conversation. And I do see a couple of people in the chat that were asking about vcita or the presentation, and do feel free to reach out to me. LinkedIn is a good place to find me, possibly the only place to find me when it comes to social media. I did say I'm not that good at that. But LinkedIn is a good place to find me, and vcita.com is a good place to find us. And yeah, I hope something was resonated with our audience today. So thank you all for your time, and thank you again, Adrian, and for everyone that was working in the background to organize this.
Thank you very much. See everyone later.